Well, growing up, have an older brother. He's 5 years older than me. Grew up in a neighborhood of all boys. I grew up playing football, softball, baseball. But with that, I also got picked on a lot growing up as a young girl, the only girl in the neighborhood with red curly hair and freckles. I got picked on quite a bit. I got into high school, very uncomfortable in high school. I just didn't fit in. So after high school, I went to college and got into criminal justice and really enjoyed it. Being a deputy is not what you see on TV. You see the worst of people. You see them in states of intoxication, beating on each other, beating their kids. It's not a glorious job, and it can be real depressing. And I did that for 4 years. And for 4 years, like I said, I saw the worst of people. And so I decided not to be a deputy anymore and go back to the office work. Some things happened within my job and during the time that I was in the position I was in, transferring, new bosses, deaths within the sheriff's office that affected me deeply, is when I had a real bad bout with depression. And being around the guys, you always want to be strong. I've always been the funny one, the one everybody calls when they have problems. I'm always just a good listener. But I've always regretted being the funny listening one because nobody ever asked me how I'm doing. And so I just kind of kept that inside. And finally in September of 2012 is when it got really bad. I just had things inside me that just kept building up, and finally they just took a toll on my body to where, I was on 4 medications a day for anxiety and depression. And finally in September is when I was hospitalized twice for depression and anxiety. I couldn't drive, I couldn't eat. My husband, there was nothing he could do. Even though I tried to tell him what was wrong, he couldn't help. So that's when it finally came to the point. I had tried all avenues but one. So my best friend growing up, he was not on Facebook, but his wife was, and I had only met her one time. And on Facebook, she had mentioned many times how much she loved her church, how much it had changed her life, but not only that, that she was attending a women's Bible ministry. And so I reached out to her. She, like I said, we'd only met once, and I just asked her, can we talk? And so we met for lunch one day, and what ended up supposedly only supposed to be an hour lunch turned into 3 hours. And we sat there and we laughed and we cried. And then finally she invited me to Women's Life Fellowship, and I went. I was scared, I'll be honest with you. I was afraid that people were going to judge me. Being 40 years old, or 39 at the time, I was afraid that the ladies were going to judge me because I didn't know everything that they probably knew. That I'd always grown up, in church, going every now and then, but not on a regular basis. So I was a little intimidated. So one night, I remember it clearly. I'd been going for a couple months. I started in September, and on November 12th of 2012, we were all standing in a large circle, holding hands during our closing prayer. And I just got this warm feeling come over me, and I just kind of dropped to my knees. And of course, my friend that invited me to come to Women's Life Fellowship, she knew exactly what was going on, and she just looked at me and said, "Are you ready?" And just, through the crying where it's, trying to gasp for breath, I said, "Yeah, I think I am." So about 5 women went into a private room with me, and that night I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, because I knew at that moment what He had done for me. And that night changed my life. I can honestly say now, it's almost a year later. I'm about 11 months in, and couldn't be happier. I'm not on my medication anymore, where I was 4 times a day. I'm down to one a day. And where my panic attacks were so bad, I have not had a single panic attack since November 12th. This ministry is the world to some ladies. It is to me. And it's making a difference in lives. It's making a difference in the kingdom. I mean, it's what Anderson needs. It's what every city and town needs.